The sky above Kepler 442b turned dark as shadows. Not the shadows of clouds or storms, but the shadows of ships. Big ships. Ships so large that they blocked out the sun itself and made the whole world go dim in the middle of the day. Park Min-ho stood on the observation deck of the human military base and watched the alien vessels descend. There were 17 of them, arranged in perfect formation, like a hand crushing something beneath it. Each ship was the size of a mountain. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy everything the humans had built on this colony world. And Min-ho knew, without any doubt in his mind, that his people were about to face the greatest test of their entire history. Behind him, his command team waited. Lee Ji-won, the tactical officer, stood with her arms crossed. She was young, maybe 30 years old. But her eyes were sharp and cold, like someone who had seen too much already. She looked at the ships the way a predator looks at other predators, with respect and caution. Kang Soo-jin, the medical specialist, was quiet. She always was. But Min-ho could see the worry in how she held her shoulders, in how her hands made small fists at her sides. "How many?" Min-ho asked. 17 capital ships, Ji-won answered without any feeling in her voice. Each one carries approximately 50,000 troops, based on the energy signatures we can read. We have 2 million people on this planet, maybe 50,000 soldiers. It is not good. Min-ho nodded slowly. He had already done the math. Everyone had done the math. The math was not good. The communication system came alive with a voice that was not human. It was flat and cold, like a machine trying to speak words. But beneath the flatness, there was something else, something that sounded like pride, like someone who had never met a real challenge in their entire life. "Humans of Kepler 442b, I am Valorian Prime Zexrath, commander of the Valorian fleet. You will gather your leaders at your main settlement for negotiations. You have 1 hour." The transmission ended. Min-ho looked at Ji-won. "Get everyone important. We meet in 1 hour." The human settlement was called New Seoul. It was not beautiful, but it was home. The buildings were made of metal and concrete because that was what they had. Trees were just starting to grow here, imported from Earth. Children played in the streets. People worked in the fields. Everything was simple and quiet and normal. Within 1 hour, that normal world would change forever. Min-ho walked through the settlement with Soo-jin beside him. People stopped what they were doing to watch them pass. They knew something was wrong. Everyone could see the ships in the sky. Everyone could feel the fear in the air, like electricity before a storm. The meeting hall was the biggest building in New Seoul. It was where the colony made important decisions. It had a big table, and they sat around it waiting. There were government leaders, military officers, and scientists. There were 37 people in total, and every single one of them was afraid. At exactly 1 hour, Zexrath arrived. He came in a small ship that landed in the main square. When he stepped out, Min-ho felt his heart beat faster. The alien was tall, maybe 3 meters high. His body was covered in something that looked like armor but was actually his skin. It was silver and hard and reflected the light like a mirror. He had 4 arms, and each hand had fingers that were too long and too thin. His eyes were large and black, and they looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects. Zexrath brought 2 guards with him. They carried weapons that looked more advanced than anything the humans had ever seen. They looked like they could destroy an entire city with 1 shot. Min-ho stood to meet him. He was only 2 meters tall, and when he looked up at Zexrath, he felt very small. But he did not move. He did not show fear. "I am Park Min-ho," he said in English. The translation system would convert it to Valorian automatically. "I speak for the humans of this colony." Zexrath made a sound that might have been laughter, or might have been something else. "I have studied your species," Zexrath said. His voice was strange, like wind moving through metal pipes. "You are soft. Your bones are fragile. You need to breathe air that is very specific. You need to eat and sleep constantly or you become weak. You cannot survive in space without special equipment. And yet you travel to the stars anyway. It is almost funny. The alien walked around the table slowly, looking at each human. Some of them looked away. Some of them tried to sit straighter and look brave. All of them failed. Your technology is primitive, Zexrath continued. We measured your weapons from orbit. You have nothing that could hurt us. Nothing that could stop even one of my ships. And yet, you do not surrender. You do not flee. Why? Is it stupidity or courage? I have not decided yet. Minho waited. He knew this was not really a question. Zexrath was just saying words. He was showing how strong he was, how weak the humans were. Finally, Zexrath looked directly at Minho. Your kind kills things, yes? You have weapons. You have killed other humans in your wars? The alien's black eyes were curious now. But how? How do you kill anything at all when you are so slow and so weak? How can you, these fragile creatures, actually kill? I am genuinely curious. Tell me. The room was completely silent. Minho could hear people breathing. He could hear the wind outside. He could hear his own blood moving through his body. Minho took a breath. He thought about Earth, where humans had lived for 10,000 years. He thought about all the wars, all the violence, all the death that humans had created. He thought about how humans had learned to kill each other with rocks and spears, then with guns and bombs, then with weapons that could destroy entire countries. He thought about how every human alive was descended from survivors, from people who had killed or been killed, over and over again, for thousands of years. Slowly, Minho said quietly. Or quickly. Depends on the situation. Zexrath's head moved in a way that might have been surprise. What? We kill slowly, Minho said. His voice was steady now. Or we kill quickly. It depends on what we need to do. The alien was silent for a long moment. Then he made that strange sound again. Laughter, Minho decided. It was laughter. Your arrogance is almost beautiful, Zexrath said. Very well. I will give you a choice, since you amuse me. You have 48 hours to surrender completely. If you do, I will allow some of you to live as workers for the Valorian Empire. If you do not, I will kill everyone on this planet, every single human. I will glass this world until nothing remains but ash. Zexrath turned and walked back toward his ship. His guards followed. 48 hours, he called back over his shoulder. Do not waste my time with resistance. It will only make things worse. The ship lifted off. It rose into the sky and disappeared among the larger Valorian vessels above. The humans in the meeting hall looked at each other. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. It was Ji-Wan who finally broke the silence. We have 48 hours, she said. That is almost 2 days. I have an idea. Can we win? No. Can we hurt them? Yes, I think so. I think we can make them hurt. Minho looked at his team. Su-Jin nodded slightly. The other officers in the room straightened their shoulders. Then we work, Minho said. We have 2 days. We find a way. The war room was below ground, deep in the belly of the military base. There were no windows here, no light except what came from computers and screens. Maps covered the walls. Pictures of Valorian ships and weapons covered other walls. And in the middle of it all sat Park Min-ho, looking at everything and understanding that it was impossible. Completely, absolutely impossible. We cannot win, Lee Ji-Wan said. She said it like someone saying that the sky was blue. It was just a fact. That is the first thing we need to understand. We do not have the weapons. We do not have the ships. We do not have the technology. If we fight them with weapons, we lose in approximately 4 minutes. She pointed at a computer screen that showed calculations, numbers and graphs and things that made Minho's head hurt. One Valorian capital ship can destroy an entire city in less than 1 minute. We have no defense against that. No defense at all. Kang Soo-jin sat at another desk, looking at medical files. She had spent the last hours studying everything they knew about Valorian biology. It was not much. Just information they had gathered from long-range sensors and communication intercepts. But Soo-jin was smart, and she was finding things that others might miss. They are not perfect, Soo-jin said quietly. Nobody is perfect. I have looked at their physiology. Their bodies work differently than ours. They have a biological component that requires a specific mineral. It is called calvan. Without it, their nervous systems cannot function properly. Minho looked at her. So, Soo-jin continued. They need to get calvane from somewhere. They import it. It has to be in their ships, in their life support systems, probably in their food. It is their weak point. The door opened. Dr. Choi Hai-wan walked in. She was an engineer, and she was covered in dust from working in the equipment rooms. Hai-wan had spent her entire life studying machines. When she looked at the Valorian technology, she saw something that others did not see. She saw patterns. She saw how things worked. She saw how things could be broken. I have been looking at their ship designs, Hai-wan said. She was breathing hard like she had been running. They rely on centralized cooling systems. All their major technology needs cooling. If the cooling stops, the ships start to have problems, serious problems. The more advanced the technology, the more it needs cooling. This is true for all advanced machines. She pulled up pictures of Valorian ships on the screen. She showed how the cooling systems worked, how the energy moved through the vessels. Their cooling systems follow the same pattern on every ship. They have the same design, the same weak point. If we could disrupt the cooling on even one ship, it would be destroyed from the inside. The technology would overload. Everything would fail. Minho began to see what they were thinking. You are saying we can beat them without fighting them directly. Exactly, Hai-wan said. We do not fight them with guns and explosions. That is their world. That is where they are strong. We fight them with thinking, with being smart, with seeing what they cannot see. Ji-won leaned forward. We need 3 things. First, we need to disrupt their communication systems. They are using a centralized network. If we can break that, they cannot coordinate. They will not know what each other is doing. They will start fighting each other instead of fighting us. Second, Soo-jin added, we need to introduce the Calvani blocking agent into their supply chains. It will not kill them quickly, but it will make them weaker over time. It will make their nervous system start to fail. They will become confused. They will make mistakes. Third, Hai-wan said, we need to sabotage their ships from the inside. We need people in their supply lines, people in their bases. We need to damage their cooling systems in ways they cannot see until it is too late. We need to make sure that their technology turns against them. Minho looked at his 3 officers. They were talking about something that was almost impossible. But it was the only idea that made any sense at all. It was the only way that humans could hurt beings who were stronger and faster and better armed. How long would this take? Minho asked. Days, Hai-wan said. Maybe weeks. It is not fast. That is the point, Ji-won said. We do not kill them quickly. We cannot. But we can kill them slowly. We can make it hurt. We can make it hurt a lot. The door opened again. This time it was Choi Mi-ra. She was a botanist, which meant she studied plants. But on a colony world, botanists did much more than just grow food. Mi-ra had been working on biological engineering. She had been trying to create plants that could survive in this world's harsh environment. Now she had a very different project. I have been thinking, Mi-ra said. She was calm, but her eyes were bright with ideas. The calvane mineral, where does it come from? Valorian homeworld, probably, Sujin said. Or maybe they trade for it. What if we could make a fake version? Mira asked. What if we could make something that looks like Calvany? Something that seems to work like Calvany, but it actually destroys their nervous systems slowly? Sujin's eyes went wide. We could put it in their food supplies. They would eat it. They would not know until it was too late. And by then, Jiwon said, they would be confused and weak. Their technology would be failing. Their ships would be breaking apart, and they would not understand what was happening. Minho stood up. He walked to the wall where the pictures of Valorian ships were posted. He looked at each one carefully. 17 giant ships, 50,000 soldiers on each one, everything designed to destroy humans, everything designed to kill. How many people do we need for this? Minho asked. Thousands, Haewon said. We need sabotage teams. We need people to infiltrate their supply lines. We need people to work in their bases. We need soldiers, Jiwon said. Fighting soldiers. They will figure out what we are doing eventually. When they do, we need to be ready to fight. We need scientists, Sujin said. People who understand biology. People who can make the fake Calvane work. Minho turned back to them. We have 50,000 soldiers. We have thousands of smart people. We have scientists and engineers and people who know how to think. And we have something else that the Valorians do not have. What? Mira asked. We have something to fight for, Minho said. They are fighting for conquest. They are fighting for the Empire. But we are fighting for home. We are fighting for our children and our families. We are fighting to survive. That makes us dangerous. That makes us willing to do things they cannot imagine. He looked at the clock on the wall. 40 hours left. 40 hours before the deadline. We do this, Minho said. We execute all 3 plans. We disrupt their communications. We contaminate their supplies. We sabotage their ships. We do not fight them directly. We make them kill themselves slowly. He paused, thinking about Zexrath's question. How do humans kill? We kill slowly, Minho said quietly. Because we understand that wars are not won in minutes. They are won through patience, through strategy, through never breaking, no matter what happens. The 4 officers nodded. They understood. They did not know if it would work. They did not know if they would live to see the end of this war. But they knew that they had to try, because if they did not, everyone on Kepler 442b would die. And humans, Minho thought, had learned over thousands of years how to fight for survival. The Valorians had conquered worlds with weapons, but the humans would fight back with something more powerful. They would fight back with their minds, with their creativity, with their refusal to surrender. The war would not be quick. It would not be easy. But it would happen, and slowly, one way or another, the humans would find a way to hurt the beings that came to destroy them. The deadline came and went. When Zexrath's voice crackled over the communication system again, it was no longer polite. It was angry. You have defied the Valorian Empire, the voice said. You will now experience consequences. Park Minho was in the war room when the first attacks began. The base shook. Once, then twice, then many times in quick succession. Explosions made the lights flicker. The screens showed data coming in from surveillance cameras all over the colony. The Valorians were bombing everything. But Minho had expected this. He had already moved most of the population into deep underground bunkers. The civilians were safe. Or as safe as anyone could be when alien warships were destroying the world above their heads. Casualties? Minho asked. Minimal, Jiwon reported. She was watching the screens with complete focus. 300 military personnel, mostly from the surface installations. The colony buildings are destroyed, but people are alive. Minho nodded. It was bad, but it could have been worse. Much worse. "Begin Phase 1, he ordered. Hidden across the colony were small teams of soldiers. Each team had a specific target. Each team had studied their target for days. Each team knew exactly what they were supposed to do. Han Jae-sung was one of these team commanders. He was a major in the human military, and he had trained his soldiers for impossible situations. They had practiced in secret, planned in hidden places, waited for this moment. Now, while the sky was still raining fire from Valorian weapons, Han Jae-sung led his team toward a small Valorian outpost. The outpost was not a big military base. It was just a supply depot. 5 Valorian soldiers guarded it. Maybe 15 military vehicles. It was small enough that the humans could attack it. It was large enough that destroying it would matter. The humans moved silently through the smoke and dust. Valorian sensors were busy watching the colony. They were not watching for attacks. They were not expecting humans to fight back. When Han Jae-sung's team opened fire, it was sudden and violent. 4 Valorian soldiers died in the first seconds. The 5th one tried to run, but Baek Hyo-jin, Han's best soldier, brought him down with a single shot. They had maybe 2 minutes before Valorian reinforcements arrived. Han moved fast. His team planted explosives on the supply vehicles. They destroyed the food containers. They broke the communication equipment. Then they ran. A Valorian patrol ship arrived 5 minutes later. It was too late. The depot was already burning. The humans were already gone, melting back into the ruins of the colony, disappearing into places where the Valorian sensors could not follow them. Across the colony, the same thing was happening. A supply warehouse was destroyed by a human team led by Baek Hyo-jin. A communications relay was sabotaged by 3 soldiers working together. A weapons storage area caught fire under mysterious circumstances. A water treatment facility that the Valorians needed was damaged beyond repair. The Valorians responded with overwhelming force. A patrol of 50 soldiers swept through the area where Han's team had struck. They found nothing. They destroyed hundreds of buildings trying to find more humans to kill. But the humans were already somewhere else, planning the next attack. Up in the Valorian command ship, Zexrath began to understand that something was wrong. He was losing resources. Equipment was being destroyed. Supply lines were being cut. His forces were becoming weaker, not stronger. "Increase patrols," Zexrath ordered. "Find these humans and kill them all." But finding humans was harder than Zexrath expected. The humans did not wear uniforms. They did not march in organized formations. They did not follow patterns that Valorian computers could predict. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They struck and vanished. They made no sense to beings who had only ever fought other organized military forces. Meanwhile, Dr. Choi Hai-won was working in a hidden facility underground. She was trying to create a virus. Not the kind that infected living things, but the kind that infected computers. A virus that could spread through Valorian communication networks and destroy them from the inside. It was the most complex work she had ever done. The Valorian technology was advanced, but it was also rigid. It was designed to work in very specific ways. That rigidity was its weakness. Haewon worked without sleep for 30 hours. Her team brought her food and water. She barely noticed. Her entire world was the computer code. Line after line after line of instructions that would, if she did them correctly, make Valorian computers turn against each other. Finally, she finished. "It is ready," she told Minho when he came to check on her progress. "You are sure?" Minho asked. "No," Haewon said honestly. "But it is the best I can do." In a hidden facility elsewhere in the colony, Choi Mira and Kang Soo-jin were working on their own project. They had taken the biological samples from fallen Valorians. They had studied the way Valorian bodies processed food. They had created something new. It looked like Calvane. It had the same molecular structure. But inside it, at the very core, was something that would slowly destroy Valorian nervous systems. It would take days to work, maybe weeks. But once it started, it would not stop. They produced 10 kilograms of the fake Calvane. It was not much, but it would be enough to contaminate a supply ship. Park Min-ho stood in the war room and looked at the maps. The Valorians had destroyed the human settlement, but they had not won. They were bleeding. Resources were disappearing. Ships were being damaged. Soldiers were dying. It was slow. It was not the quick victory that the Valorians had expected. But it was working. "How long can we keep doing this?" Su-jin asked. "Until we cannot," Min-ho said. "We are bleeding too. We are losing people. But the Valorians are losing more. They are strong and fast, but they are not patient. They are not used to fighting people who refuse to surrender." Ji-won was reading data from the Valorian communications network. The humans had planted listening devices in several locations. They could hear some of what the Valorians were saying. "They are confused," Ji-won said. "Their reports say the situation is not under control. Xenos is becoming frustrated. He is demanding faster attacks, more aggressive tactics." "That is good," Min-ho said. "Frustration leads to mistakes. Mistakes lead to opportunities." Over the next 3 days, the pattern continued. The humans attacked small targets. The Valorians responded with overwhelming force. The humans disappeared. Supplies were destroyed. Equipment was damaged. Soldiers on both sides were killed. But the Valorians were losing more. Their supply lines were being cut. Their communication systems were becoming unreliable. And soon, very soon, the fake Calvane would be introduced into their food chain. Xenos called for a massive assault on the human colony. He ordered his soldiers to level everything, to leave no building standing. To kill any human they found. It was exactly what Min-ho had expected him to do. "Begin Phase 2, Min-ho ordered. The next stage of the plan was about to begin, and this time the humans would do something that no alien fleet had ever faced before. They would show that a smaller, weaker enemy could hurt a much stronger one. Not quickly, but absolutely. The sky above Kepler 442b grew dark again as Valorian weapons fell. But in the darkness, humans moved. Humans planned. Humans prepared for the moment when their enemy would finally break. The hunt had started. The hunt for the life of their people. And humans, Min-ho thought, had learned to hunt long, long ago. The Valorian assault was devastating. The humans had known it would be. They had prepared for it anyway. For 3 days straight, the alien ships dropped weapons on the colony. Laser beams carved lines of fire across the landscape. Missiles fell from the sky like rain. Entire buildings simply ceased to exist, destroyed so completely that nothing remained but ash and scorched earth. But the humans were not in those buildings. Park Min-ho had ordered an evacuation weeks before, disguised as a simple relocation of workers. Now, nearly all of the remaining human population was in deep bunkers. Bunkers that had been carved into the bedrock of Kepler 442b long ago, designed for exactly this kind of catastrophe. Above ground, Han Jae-sung and his soldiers fought a different kind of war. They did not try to stop the Valorians. They could not, but they did something more important. They moved through the ruins. They planted explosives. They prepared traps. They got into position for the next phase. When the Valorian ground forces finally landed, it was in a city that was completely destroyed. Buildings were rubble. Streets were cracks in the earth. There was nothing to defend. There were no humans to shoot at. "Where are they?" Xenos demanded over the communication system. His voice was angry now, genuinely angry. "Find the humans!" The Valorian soldiers began to search. Thousands of them, moving through the ruins, looking for signs of life. They found very little. Just empty buildings. Just destruction. Just silence. What they did not find was the truth. The truth was in the sky above them. Dr. Choi Hai-wan's virus had been injected into the Valorian communication network 3 days ago. For 3 days, it had been spreading. 3 days of moving through Valorian computers, learning their systems, understanding their weaknesses. Now, on Hai-wan's signal, the virus activated. The Valorian flagship went dark. Not completely dark. The lights still worked. The basic systems still functioned. But the main computers died. The communications network died. The weapons control systems went silent. The ship that commanded the entire Valorian fleet suddenly could not talk to anyone or control anything. In the communication relay station underground, Hai-wan watched as the network collapsed. 17 Valorian capital ships suddenly went silent. They could not contact each other. They could not contact their flagship. They were completely alone. "It is working," she said into the radio. Up in orbit, 17 Valorian ships began to malfunction. Without the centralized command system, they became individual vessels. Captains tried to contact each other through backup systems. Nothing worked. They had no orders. They did not know what to do. Some of them tried to blast the flagship, thinking it had turned traitor. Some of them tried to leave orbit. Some of them stayed in place, their crews confused and uncertain. The human advantage, which had always been patience and thinking, suddenly became something else. It became chaos. And in chaos, humans thrived. Han Jae-sung emerged from the ruins with his soldiers. They began guerrilla warfare. They did not fight in organized formations. They did not follow the rules of traditional combat. They appeared on rooftops and fired down at Valorian troops. They set traps on streets and made Valorian soldiers fall into them. They used the destroyed city like a living weapon, turning every broken building and twisted street into a place of danger. The Valorian soldiers were stronger and better armed, but they were confused. They were receiving contradictory orders through backup communication systems. Some units were told to push forward. Some units were told to hold position. Some units were told nothing at all. More importantly, the fake Calvane was beginning to work. The Valorian soldiers had been eating contaminated food for days. At first, they felt fine. Now, subtle things were beginning to happen. Reactions were slowing slightly. Thinking was becoming harder to focus. Coordination was becoming more difficult. A Valorian soldier tried to aim his weapon and found that his hands were shaking. Another soldier tried to follow an order and could not remember what it was. Another soldier looked at a human and saw 2 of them instead of 1. The nervous system breakdown was beginning, slowly, imperceptibly, but definitely. Han Jae-sung's soldiers noticed the change immediately. They were trained to notice such things. They began to be bolder. They began to press the attacks harder. Underground, Park Min-ho watched the data coming in. The Valorian flagship was still dark. The fleet was in chaos. The ground forces were starting to break. "Do we have a chance?" Soo-jin asked him. "Maybe," Min-ho said. "We still have to survive. But we have a chance." He made the decision to do something dangerous. He decided to go to the surface. Kang Soo-jin tried to stop him. "It is too dangerous. You are too important." "Exactly," Min-ho said, "which is why I have to go. The soldiers need to see their commander. They need to see that humans do not break, that we stand and fight." So Park Min-ho went to the surface and moved through the destroyed city. He found Han Jae-sung fighting in a ruined building. Valorian soldiers were trying to clear the structure floor by floor. "Commander," Han said, surprised and concerned. "Keep fighting," Min-ho ordered. "We have them where we want them. The communication systems are failing. Their soldiers are getting weaker. We need to keep pressing. We need to show them that humans cannot be beaten." For the first time in the conflict, Min-ho took up a weapon and fought alongside his soldiers. He aimed and fired. A Valorian soldier fell, then another one. The humans around him fought with new energy, seeing their commander fighting beside them. The battle lasted through the entire day. By nightfall, the Valorian ground forces had begun to retreat. They were confused, weakened by the contaminated food, and facing an enemy that refused to die. They began to pull back toward their landing ships. That was when HFY activated the second part of her plan. The sabotage teams that had infiltrated the Valorian bases went into action. They had planted explosives inside the power systems of the landed transport ships. When the explosives activated, 3 of the transport ships were damaged beyond any ability to fly. The Valorians trapped on the ground had no way to escape. They began to evacuate on whatever ships they could salvage. The chaos was complete. The organized Valorian military, so confident hours before, was now in complete disorder. By the end of the day, the Valorian ground forces had completely withdrawn from the human colony. What remained on Kepler 442b was only dead Valorians and destruction. But the humans had survived. In the sky, the 17 Valorian capital ships began to recover. Their computers came back online. Communications were restored, but now the ships had to deal with the fact that their command structure was broken. The flagship could not repair itself. The other ships had been fighting among themselves. And slowly, the captains realized something. They realized that the humans had won this first engagement. It was a small victory, just one colony against one task force. But it was a victory nonetheless. More importantly, the message was being sent. Humans could fight, humans could think, humans could adapt, and humans would not break. Over the next few weeks, the pattern would only intensify. The Valorians would attempt new attacks. The humans would use different strategies. Slowly, the Valorian fleet would become weaker. And slowly, the humans would grow stronger. Park Min-ho stood in the ruins of New Seoul and looked at the dead city. It was sad. It was terrible. It was also necessary. "We are still alive," he said to his soldiers. "That is what matters. We are still alive." Weeks passed, then months. The war did not end quickly because humans had never promised it would. Min-ho had said it at the beginning, slowly or quickly. The humans had chosen slowly. The Valorian fleet began to fall apart piece by piece. First, the supply lines failed completely. The fake Calvane that Mira had created was now in their food supplies on multiple ships. Valorian soldiers began to show strange symptoms. Some could not think clearly, some could not control their bodies properly, some became aggressive for no reason. Others simply stopped functioning, their nervous systems too damaged to continue. A Valorian captain named Zork, commanding one of the capital ships, ordered his crew to stop eating the provided food and to synthesize their own nutrients. But by then, it was too late. Half his crew was already showing signs of the poisoning. They became unreliable. Equipment malfunctioned. The ship had to be abandoned. Second, the sabotage teams continued their work. Han Jae-sung and his soldiers had learned how to infiltrate Valorian bases without being detected. They had learned the patterns. They had learned where to place charges, where to cut wires, where to break systems. One of the capital ships, the command vessel, suffered a catastrophic failure in its cooling systems. Dr. HFY had arranged this carefully. A tiny sabotage device, barely visible, had been placed inside the ship months ago by a soldier pretending to be a worker. When it activated, the cooling system began to shut down. Without cooling, the Valorian technology began to overheat. Computer systems fried. Weapons arrays went offline. Power plants failed. The ship became a burning wreck floating in space. The Valorians had to evacuate, abandoning the vessel completely. One by one, the 17 capital ships began to fail. Some were destroyed by human sabotage. Some were crippled by food poisoning. Some suffered mechanical failures that could not be repaired with the poisoned workers available. Some were simply left without enough crew to operate them properly. The Valorians tried to fight back with stronger attacks. They dropped more weapons. They landed more soldiers. But each time they did, they found that humans were waiting. Humans had studied their patterns. Humans had learned how to predict what they would do. A young soldier named Jiho led a team into a Valorian bunker. They did not have heavy weapons. They did not have advanced technology. But they had something the Valorians did not have. They had learned to make do with very little. They used improvised explosives made from supplies found in the colony. They used tactics learned from studying Earth's wars. They used tactics that the Valorians, in their arrogance, had never encountered before. The humans won that battle, though Jiho was killed in the fighting. Sujin grieved for Jiho. He had been her friend, but she also used the data from the battle to improve the Calvani poison. She made it more effective. She made it faster. She made sure that the next batch of Valorian soldiers would be even more weakened than the last. Park Min-ho moved from base to base, seeing the war with his own eyes. He stood with soldiers who were hungry and tired and afraid. He stood with them anyway. He told them that they would survive. He told them that humans had survived worse. He told them the truth. We are weaker than them. We have less technology. We have fewer soldiers. But we have something they do not have. We have a reason to fight. We have home. We have families. We have a future worth fighting for. That makes us stronger than all their weapons. By the third month, the Valorian fleet had lost 70% of its ships. The flagship was still in orbit, but it was barely functional. The command systems were damaged. The communications were unreliable. Zexrath was still alive, but he was beginning to understand something he had never understood before. Defeat was possible. He sent a message to Min-ho. The message came through a heavily encrypted channel, requiring all of Haiwan's skills just to decode it. "I wish to negotiate," Zexrath said. "I wish to discuss the terms of a ceasefire." Min-ho listened to the message in the war room. Jiwan looked at him with surprise. "Is it a trick?" she asked. "Maybe," Min-ho said. "But we can listen. We have nothing to lose." The negotiation took place in a neutral meeting space. A Valorian shuttle landed, and Zexrath emerged. He looked different than he had before. His armor was cracked. His movements were slower. He was poisoned, Min-ho realized. The Calvane poison had affected even their commander. "You have won," Zexrath said. It was not a question. "We have survived," Min-ho corrected. "And we will continue to survive." Zexrath was silent for a long moment. "I do not understand how this happened. We had superior technology. We had superior numbers. We had superior training. But you had no one to fight for," Min-ho said quietly. "You fight for conquest. We fight for survival. That is the difference." The Valorian commander looked at the human. He saw a man who was tired and scarred, and still standing. He saw humans who had lost everything but refused to break. "I will order my remaining fleet to retreat," Zexrath said finally. "The Valorian Empire will not return to this world. You have earned your freedom." The retreat began immediately. Ships that could still fly began to leave orbit. Ships that could not fly were abandoned. The Valorian soldiers who were still capable began to evacuate. But the victory, though real, came at a terrible price. 15,000 humans were dead. The entire colony had been destroyed. Crops were gone. Buildings were rubble. The survivors had nothing but each other and the determination to rebuild. Min-ho stood in the center of what had been New Seoul. He looked at the ruins and thought about all the people who had died to keep those ruins from being anything worse. Beside him stood Lee Ji-won and Kang Soo-jin, Choi Hai-won and Choi Mi-ra, Han Jae-sung and Baek Hyo-jin. They were all dirty and tired and grieving. But they were alive. Humanity was alive on Kepler 442b. "Do you think they will tell other civilizations about us?" Ji-won asked, looking at the Valorian ships disappearing into space. Min-ho watched them go. "Yes, they will tell them everything. They will tell them about the fragile humans who could not be broken, about the weak species that defeated a strong one, about the prey that became the predator." He paused, thinking about Zexrath's question. How do humans kill? We killed them slowly, Minho said. We poisoned their food. We broke their machines. We wore them down through patience and strategy. We killed them slowly because we have learned that the most dangerous predator is not the strongest one. It is the one that refuses to break. The sun was setting over the ruins of the colony. The light turned everything orange and red, like fire, like blood. Now we rebuild, Minho said. We build something that can stand. We build a future, and if they come again, we will be ready. The survivors of Kepler 442b began the work of rebuilding. They built memorials for the dead. They planted new crops. They constructed new buildings. And slowly, over time, new soul began to live again. Not the same as before, never the same as before, but alive, determined, ready to face whatever came next. Because humans, the galaxy would learn, had learned long ago how to survive. Humans knew how to kill slowly, methodically, absolutely, and humans would never, ever break.